Hello, everyone, and welcome to session 7 of All the Fixings. If you have your listening guide, get that out and take a look, follow along with the scriptures. But I also need you to turn to page 77 in your homework because there's that big long list of scriptures out of Luke that I'm going to refer to. So, follow along. I'm going to start with Hebrews 12, verses 1 and 2 in the New King James. Therefore, we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin that so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who, for the joy set before him, endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. If you heard my husband's message on Sunday, I hope that scripture stood out to you because we covered that in session 1 of All the Fixings. That word, looking unto Jesus, actually in the Greek means fix. It means fix attention on, fix your eyes. The NIV says in verse 2, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. I love that about the Lord. Again, remembering that we are to fix our eyes on Jesus, not on our circumstances, not what's going on around us, but look to the Lord. So, going back to day 1 of our homework, 2 very desperate people met Jesus that day. Jairus, the leader of the synagogue, he came to Jesus and for his daughter to be healed. Then there was the woman with the issue of blood. She came to Jesus. They were desperate for the Lord. How desperate are you? You know, when things start going well in life, so many times we relax. You know, we come to church and go, yeah, I'm good, I'm fine. Yeah, it's nice. God's working in your life. Good. That's good. But we don't pursue the Lord as desperately as these people do. Now, I know I'm preaching to the choir because you women are doing Bible study. You're spending at least 30 minutes a day in the Word listening to the Lord. So, I know this probably doesn't include you at all because you are desperate for the Lord. You're taking the time, you're seeking him out. Something that I noticed was both Jairus and the woman, they both fell at Jesus' feet. Last week when we talked about the woman who brought the jar of alabaster perfume and broke it and poured it on Jesus on his feet. When we read about that, and I read the story to you out of How to Worship the King book. In the book, when I was looking specifically for that story, there was a challenge to bow, to come and bow before the Lord for 40 days. And I thought, okay, you know what? I think I'm going to take that challenge. And today was, for me, it's only day 6, but for the next 40 days or 34 days now, I'm committing to first thing in the morning, getting up, surrendering my life to him, like literally getting on my knees and say, Lord, you have the right to rule my life. I surrender to you, to your will, your way. And, you know, the first couple of days I was like, got up and starting to drink my coffee and went, oh yeah, I forgot. Put my coffee down, get on the floor. Anyway, today I actually did it before I had my coffee. So, just in case you want to take that challenge as well, you're welcome to join me. I love that the NLT says that somebody, when the woman was pressing through the crowd and she wanted to get to Jesus, Jesus stops and he says, somebody deliberately touched me. You know, and he, of course, he asked the question, who touched me? And everybody else says, everybody's touching you. What do you mean, who touched you? I love that the woman with the issue of blood deliberately, intentionally touched Jesus. You know, when I'm on my knees before the Lord, what I've been doing is kind of picturing just his feet, just like the woman with the alabaster jar. That's just what I'm picturing. I'm being very intentional. I'm being very deliberate about that. It's funny. It's not funny, but Jesus really does notice when we're intentional, and he does feel loved, honored, and treasured. Verse 46 on page 77, it says, Jesus replied, yes, I felt power surge through me. Someone touched me to be healed, and they received their healing. You know what? I love that when we press through, our healing really does come. It is God's will for you to be healed. Those of you that have been struggling with healing or seeking to be healed, continue to press through. By his stripes, you have been healed. Your healing will come. You can trust the Lord totally and completely. Follow along, verse 47. When the woman realized she couldn't hide any longer, she came and fell trembling at Jesus' feet. Before the entire crowd, she declared, I was desperate to touch you, Jesus, for I knew that if I could just touch even the fringe of your robe, I would be healed. And Jesus responds, beloved daughter, your faith in me has released your healing. You may go with my peace. Our faith must be in the Lord. Hebrews 11, verse 1. This would be on your listening guide. The Passion Translation. I love how it's worded. Now faith brings our hopes into reality and becomes the foundation needed to acquire the things we long for. It's all the evidence required to prove what is still unseen. Faith in God, faith in Jesus, not in if I can only do this, or if I can only do that, or if I fast for so many days, or if I get on my knees for so many days, then my healing will come. No, you're pressing in and you're trusting. Your faith is in the Lord. You are choosing to believe that God's word is true. That's where your faith comes in. That's believing what God said is true. Now, I don't know what was going on in Jairus' mind. You know, he's already asked Jesus to come with him. The whole crowd is moving toward Jairus' home, and then all of a sudden this woman shows up on the scene and delays the process. And then what happens? All of a sudden, here come the the people who bring the bad news that said, don't even bother the teacher any longer, your daughter's dead. I love that Jesus says, Jairus, don't yield to your fear. Trust, believe in me. Let's read it. Verse 50, when Jesus heard this, he said, Jairus, don't yield to your fear. Have faith in me, and she will live again. Again, you know, fear comes. Fear happens all the time. You know, sometimes we're sideswiped by it because fear shows up sometimes very unexpectedly and very suddenly. Don't yield to it. You've heard the story before when my daughter, my oldest daughter, Naomi, was getting ready to give birth. She was diagnosed with preeclampsia, went to the hospital for an emergency C-section, and Mama was freaking out about it. Why was I freaking out? Because first of all, I'd watched a movie, watched a show that where this somebody's daughter had died of preeclampsia even after delivering the baby. But so I had this movie thing running through my mind, and I'm trying really hard not to freak out. And you know, of course, my husband, he's Mr. Calm and cool, and it's all going to be fine. And I'm thinking, yeah, but you don't know the movie that I saw, and this is what happened, and why in the world did I even go there? You know what? My youngest daughter, Hannah, came up to the hospital because she heard this was our first grandchild to be born, and so Hannah wanted to be there as well as her other sister wanted to be there, Rachel. And but anyway, when Hannah got there, she's like, "Mom, what's the matter with you?" She's like, and then she stopped. She's like, "Oh, you're thinking about that movie, aren't you?" Yes, I am. And you know what? I should have told on myself a whole lot sooner than that. Because you know what? When you tell on yourself, the enemy cannot use it against you. Last week when we were praying before we started the message, I told you that I'm feeling a little anxious. I had a little anxiety. I was just kind of wondering if anybody else was dealing with any emotions. And anyway, I tell on myself because otherwise the whole time I'm teaching, I'm going to be anxious, upset, and the enemy is going to get a foothold there. So you always want to tell on yourself. I'm real quick to tell on myself because I'm not giving the enemy any room. But here's the deal with me. Quite often, because I flow in a gift of healing, quite often I will pick up I will sense symptoms in the room, you know, like a hip or lower back, arms, hands, whatever. I'll pick up on that, and quite often that same pain I'll get, and I'll know that it's for somebody else. It's not me because I'm not. I wasn't hurting before I came into a group of people. So I've learned to be aware of that. So anyway, that's why I say, I tell on myself, you know, especially where anxiety or fear comes in. I was in an accident, and I think I've told you this story before. When we took my daughter Rachel to college, as we were driving down, we were getting ready to leave. My husband and my daughter were in her red truck. I was following along behind in a little blue Taurus that we had at the time, and I hit what was it called? Not a car jack. It was trailer hitch. There we go. It was a trailer hitch that had all of a sudden just appeared in my lane as we were driving. I hit that trailer hitch. I was trying to, I knew I couldn't straddle it. The truck had straddled it. I couldn't straddle it. And I was trying to get around. We were in Chicago, 4 lanes of rush hour traffic. The car, the tire caught the trailer hitch, spun me around like I was on ice. And I was just praying the whole time, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Slammed up against the wall. But for the grace of God, nobody else hit me. That was crazy. Just an example of the Lord's protection. Now, here's where the fear came in, or the emotional response, even a couple of days later, when I think it took a little while, because I really had to learn to take my thoughts captive. But when we would hit a bump in the road, there was like a chemical reaction that would happen in my body, and I would tense up. I could feel it, even though I knew it was a bump in the road, for goodness sakes. It was not at all anything dangerous. Still, that fear, that flash of fear would come upon me. I could not yield to it. I had to learn to take those thoughts captive and speak the word over my life. You know what? I love what Jesus said. Because he said, don't yield to your fear. Put your faith in me. And that's what we have to do. That's why we fix our eyes upon Jesus. When the wind and the waves, everything's going crazy, chaotic around us, we can't, look at everything, because when we do, that's when we begin to sink. Fix your eyes on Jesus. I just said that. I love that Jesus reminds us to have faith in him. Let's look at, let's see. Verse 54. So, Jesus is on his way to see Jairus' daughter to raise her up, and he says she's not dead, she's just asleep and must be awakened. Verse 54, Jesus approached the body, took the girl by the hand, and called out in a loud voice, "My sleeping child, awake, rise up." Instantly, her spirit returned to her body. She stood up. Jesus directed her stunned parents to give her something to eat and ordered them not to tell anyone what had just happened. Awake, rise up. What is God calling you to rise up in? Is it your faith? Is it courage? What is it? God is calling you, his daughter, rise up. Will you rise to the occasion? What do you need to do to awaken? Allow yourself to heed the voice of the Lord in your homework. Again, this week, I gave you an assignment last week to go back and look and see if there were any areas where you needed to obey anything that the Lord had asked you to, required of you. So in your homework, day 2, you're gonna find the exact same assignment. Just in case you didn't do it, I'm gonna give you a chance to do it because it's in your homework. So you can look for that this week. Other than that, we have one more. This is our last week of homework, And next week is our last session. And man, I just am so proud of you all for sticking with it and being faithful to the Word. Image bearers, I love you very much. I call you blessed, and we'll see you next time.